manyoko son oui ya son nanamu Tia kpane bato we atomoni o ya do mon si akwie ya o Amo manyoko son oui ya son denbemu ya Tia kpane bato we atomoni o ya do mon si akwie ya o Tia se pa yanju o se pa yanju o ya kian sa pa yanju ka o kian ma se pa yanju ju o so si o lele ya si o lele o ya si o lele lele o ya si o lele yo amo manyo ko so wi ya son dan mu Tia kpane bato we atomoni o abinyon mi do mon si akwie ya o Kian se pa yan jijo mama Kian se pa yan jijo re son ke wo kian ya kian se pa yan ju o Kian ya uri money mo re tole se ma bembe son bi Kian ya uri manjo e abatoni Passion même bobo Kian ya we money Mo retole si ama memu pio abinyo be Wo kian
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to yet another edition of Tough Talking Thursday on Focus on Liberia. My name is Dennis Jai, and we are broadcasting from Atlanta, Georgia. In tonight's edition of Tough Talking Thursday, we are honored to have the Vice Standard Bearer of the Liberian People's Party, Dr. Emmanuel Gongloe-Yarkpawolo. Our topic tonight is we want to discuss the Gongloe-Yarkpawolo plan for Liberia and their chances for victory come October 10, 2023. So we want to say a warm welcome to Dr. Emmanuel Gongloe-Yarkpawolo. Welcome, sir.
Yes, Dennis, thank you very much to you and all of your panelists. Thank you to Focus on Liberia for all the work you do to help promote our democracy, but also the educational programs follow your show very well, and all of your listeners, both in the diaspora and back in Liberia. We are happy to share with you our platform and the plan we have to lift Liberia out of poverty. So nice to be on your show tonight.
Thank you very much. Let me welcome our governance consultant, that's Mr. Ahmed K. Salib, who's also part of the Tough Talking Thursday crew. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Dennis. It's a pleasure to be here, and I look forward to discussing with Dr. Yarkpawolo and grilling him and understanding the Gongloe-Yarkpawolo campaign and what's going on and what's the plan to victory.
Thank you. Let me also welcome Dr. Abdullah Dukle, the man who knows a thing or two about campaigning because he did twice for President Salif. Dr. Duke, welcome to the show.
Thank you, and thanks to, welcome to Dr. Yarkpawolo and to all our colleagues and the audience. I'm pleased to be here.
Thank you. Let me also welcome our former Consul General of the Republic of Liberia from the city of New York, Honorable William Gadier Greaves. Mr. Greaves, welcome to the show.
I'm not getting through. I can't hear anything.
We can hear you.
Hello?
Right. Maybe it's
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you very clearly.
My mic is off.
All right. Yes, yeah. Honorable Greaves, can you hear us now? Right. You can keep working on that and come back later. But that's Honorable William G. Greaves. He's the former Consul General, Republic of Liberia. We want to welcome all our viewers from across the globe. This is Focus on Liberia. It's Tough Talking Thursday again. Our guest is Dr. Emmanuel Gongloe-Yarkpawolo, who is currently in the United States And Dr. Yarkpawolo, first, say welcome to the States. It's campaign time. What are you doing here?
Yes, it's campaign time. My visit to the United States was based upon an invitation by our supporters in the United States. They wanted me to come and rally here our supporters in terms of fundraising, but also to answer questions to the diaspora Liberians in terms of our platform. That's what I'm here doing. We started first with Minnesota. We are through with that.
There's something wrong with my speaker. My speaker not doing.
Yeah, we are.
We're hearing you. So,
My mic is on.
please, we can hear you. Maybe you can go out and come back in. Maybe that will fix it.
As I was saying, so we're through in Minnesota. We are right now in Wisconsin, and then tomorrow we're traveling to Pennsylvania, and from there other parts of the United States before headed back to Liberia. So yes, it's campaign time, and part of that is what we're doing here in the U.S.
Thank you. Thank you. Let me start by saying this is your first time. You were on Focus on Labrador before, but in a different capacity. Now you are running with Councillor Gongloe. So let me start by saying, why should Liberians vote for the Gongloe-Yarkpawolo ticket?
Wonderful, Dennis. And to answer that question, I think for those of your listeners listening to me for the first time, I think it's good for me to give a little bit of background of myself and Councillor Gongloe. Then we come to the question as to why this time, why are we running for president and vice president of Liberia? Then to you and all of your panelists, we are very humble, as I said, to be here. But our story is very common in Liberia. It's the Liberian story. I born 1981, and then my mother passed away in 1982 in a very small village. That village is called Gomo, around the Guinea border in Bon County. I did not start schools until 1989 when I told my father I wanted to go to school. He had planned to send me to a nearby town called Jowa for me to go to school. 1990, the war started. So we lived through the war, of course. We continued until 1994 when the Ulimbo War that came from Lofa, it was to Delhi. That war drove us into Guinea. So I went to Guinea in 1994, but then I have not started school. I went to stay with one of my sisters. Her name was Sister Gopu. And I told her I wanted to go to school. And then they were getting prepared to send me to a French school. Her husband, name is Jerry. He's still in Qatar today. But then she got sick and passed away. I ran away. This was in 1995. I came to another refugee camp called the Beta Refugee Camp, where I told my father I wanted to go to school. He thought I was too old, so he sent me to learn blacksmith. So I went to the blacksmith shop, spent about 3.5 weeks there. Then I ran away and went back. In the camp, I still said I wanted to go to school. He said the war had destroyed his properties in Liberia, and when he come back to Liberia, no school fee. And I told him God would provide. To fast forward the story, I first started to learn how to read and write in 1995 for the first time at the age of almost 14 years. By 2005, I graduated from Limela High School, student council president, and carried award, 8 awards out of 12 subjects. I went to Cuttington, finished Cuttington in 3 years instead of 4. Went back to Cuttington, got a master's degree. Then I got a scholarship, came to the University of Wisconsin-Madison, where I got a second master's degree in 2013. Then by 2018, I obtained a doctor of philosophy in environment and resources. So that's becoming be counted among the top 1% highly educated people in the United States. So that's my educational background. But in terms of Liberia, after graduating in 2018, I returned to Liberia. My reason of going back to Liberia was to help the country because I have started working on the land right law in terms of the research. I, along with a group of researchers and from civil society, we developed the law. And my master's thesis, almost a little over 90% of the recommendation went to inform the land right policy, and that policy was developed in 2013. In 2014, drafted into law after Ebola. That law got stored in the corridors of the National Legislature So my intention was to go back and make sure that law was passed and do other work. It was through that process I get to know Councillor Gongloe between 2010 and 2016. We worked together. He was a consultant to the Land Commission. We had a lot of conversation and personal stories, our views about life and about Liberia, our vision for Liberia. So that's how I returned to Liberia, and finally we passed a law in 2018, taking the power of land ownership from the government and giving it to the indigenous people and making sure that women's rights are protected in our law. Then I started to run a college in Monrovia, the Salvation Army Polytechnic. I had started with that college as a warehouse manager back in 2009. But 2018, I will go back to serve as the first president on a volunteer basis. Started to work there. Then at some point, I decided that, you know what, we all can help outside of government, but until we can get in government, it'll be difficult for the country to change, because there is not a single country in the world with a history of development without serious people being in government. So it's important that we get into government so that we shape the policy. That decision was based upon my research work I have done in Liberia, traveled nearly all over Liberia, but also I read nearly all the concession agreements in Liberia. And so the way the agreements are written and the way they are structured, I thought a knowledgeable person needed to be involved with it. So that's how I started running as a representative candidate for my district, aspiring at the time as an independent candidate, until I was called by the councillor and the team of lawyers to serve as the vice tenant bearer. So then we built a lot of consensus in that process for us at a point where we agree. But everyone, I think more people know Councillor Gongloe. He worked as a lawyer for over 35 years in Liberia. He's called the poor man lawyer because of his stand for justice. He won several international and human rights awards. So by his stepping in this race, and his records are very clear, is a deep passion. And when I asked him, why are you choosing me? I'm not famous. I don't have money. He told me that the reason why I'm choosing you because you share my value and you are young. So your capacity needs to be built. So come closer to me, because I'm not looking for riches. I'm not looking for popularity. I'm looking for somebody who share my basic value. And I'm very, very humble to hear him say that. And I carried out humility even up to today and in the future. So those are my opening statement. We can now touch the question why we are running. If I should continue, but I can take.
Right, but because you mentioned that you were chosen, I want to ask you a little bit more on that, because it took, at first we heard that Councillor Gongloe was looking for a female vice presidential running mate. And so he has had talk with other people. Do you find yourself as being like the last resort?
So I don't think I will consider myself to be the last resort in this case, because there were still options. Actually, the way it happened was that lawyers entered my office and told me they researched me. They had two names to submit to Councillor Gongloe, but they were required to submit 3. So they wanted to add my name to the 2 names because my profile was very impressive. So it would be the will of the councillor to choose one person among the 3. That's what they told me. And so so through that process, he finally contacted me. He said he had decided to choose me. So we humbled by it, but I don't think we were at the last resort, because in fact, we were positioned. We were going to win our seat as independent representative for district number 4 in Bon County, based upon the work we had done of our people over many, many years up to this point. So I think we believe him. I believe him when he told me, I'm choosing you because of the integrity you share with me. Notwithstanding, when I asked him a little bit hard, he also told me, yes, he wanted to get a female candidate. And he mentioned actually 2 different candidate names that he approached, female, but they have different plan, right? They have different plan. They were not willing to accept that. So he did tell me that. but I can say that we're like a last resort. No.
Thank you. So let now come to my question, then I can give the rest of my panelists chance to talk to you. First question is, why should Liberians vote for your team on October 10, 2023? What does your team have compared to, say, the incumbent or Mr. Buakai, who has been in the game for so long, or Mr. Cummings, who ran before, and the rest of the candidates?
I think what we have that set us apart is, our core value of public service, wherein both of us, throughout our lives, everything we've done, it has proven we are servant leaders. So we're clearly servant leaders, and that's a course, in fact, something that I do teach in leadership about what is a servant leader. We do have that. I will not go through detail now, except there's a follow-up question. I can go into detail as to what a servant leader is. The both of us share that value. We strongly believe in and have practiced the value of integrity, and so much strong that we set ourselves to the high standard. And you need a leader that will transform a country to have that. But besides that, our vision of transforming Liberia, we have a 10-point count to be able to transform Liberia. It's very clear and it's practical, it's measurable. So those things, it really set us apart that I don't think you can find in the rest of the candidate so easily. For instance, when we talk about our fight against corruption, because without serious fight against corruption, we will never develop Liberia or any other country. Even if the budget was to go to say like $5 billion, that development will not come. As soon as the money is entering into few people, friends' hands, and they are going with impunity. So we have a very clear methodology as to how to deal with that. I yet to see the opponent, some of their methodology. They will say they're against corruption, but I yet to see their clear practical step that we have laid out in terms of fighting corruption. When we talk about food production, when we talk about infrastructure, role, when we talk about education, our policies, they are very, very clear and they are practical. Even when I explain it on the show tonight, many of you will agree with me that they are doable. So based upon that, we are quite positioned to be able to transform the country, and we are the best candidate. I'm just really giving opening statement. I'm not going in detail now as to the policy, and when the time comes for us to do that, we'll be able to go through them.
Before I call on Dr. Dukle, are the Liberian people buying this? What you are selling?
The Liberian people are buying our policy, our clear message to them. They're understanding it. That's why we have thousands of volunteers who are going from village to village, preaching the message. Yes, so confidently I can say that they are buying it. And in fact, people from civil service, many of whom salaries were cut through quote unquote salary harmonization without any benefit. They know exactly what we're going to do in terms of fighting corruption at the top and how we're going to increase their salary. They'll be having a dignified job. Their pay will commensurate with their qualification and experience. So our message is resonating, and that's why, in fact, we are at the place where we are now.
Thank you, Dr. Duke.
Yeah, Dr. Yapolo, how you doing?
I'm doing okay. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, and my regards to Councilor Gongloe. I'm going to do something different. I'm not going to ask you a lot of questions. I'll just say, okay, it's tic-tac. I'll give you a word, and then you just give me what you think. Your response to it. Your reaction, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's simple, Like, okay, I say, let's go. I say, okay, economy.
So you want me to react to the word economy?
Yeah, economy, how you define it in your setting, as a candidate, I say, okay, economy. You say, okay, what is it? Yeah.
Well, when we talk about economy,
okay, you can.
We're talking about
right.
yeah, we're talking about
Make it short.
economy. We're talking about a system of governance, and in which, uh, especially in the context of what we're talking about Liberia, we're talking about a system of both governance and living condition where people are able to attain their livelihood activities, at least to a reasonable extent. At least my understanding about, apart from economy being money changing from hands to hands, in this context, we're talking about what can a country do in terms of the natural resources, the human resources, the land-based resources, water resources, tourism. How can all those areas be developed so as to create jobs and raise the standard of living, uh, provide social services to the citizen? That's my understanding of economy in governance structure as it relates to Liberia.
National reconciliation.
National reconciliation is a big thing, um, and 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 I think we start from the point of no peace without justice, no reconciliation without any form of punishment for those who breaks the law. National healing and reconciliation, it will take place if we are strong on law enforcement. Laws are made to guide human interactions, and if people are breaking the law and are cheating other people and they're going with impunity, it's very difficult for reconciliation to take place. So we enforce the law, and then people are punished for their actions, and then the people reconcile. Again, it boils down back to standard of living in terms of the improvement of economic activities. Let me just drill down a little bit on the effect of the war. I have never seen a country that fought a war for that many years and carry on so much destruction that you don't even see a war museum. Okay, you don't see a war museum where we memorialize the war, where massacres and things took place. Those who died in those areas, we're not conducting research for us to get their name and print those names on the carved on the marble stones, so that on Decoration Day, their children can go there and cry on them and heal. So Liberia will still have a lot of wound embedded. So we haven't even reconciled ourselves, but that's something on our agenda. We have a holistic approach that we will do many things so as to reconcile the people, and true reconciliation will take place.
Is 1980 part of reconciliation?
1980 should be part of reconciliation. 1979 should be part of reconciliation, as well as doing the war.
Thank you. Let me go to Mr. Salif.
Thank you. Dr. Yarkpawolo, it's a pleasure to be on with you. So when I'm talking to candidates for office who are running for office, and somebody asks me to help with strategy, I ask them three questions. Every electoral campaign, the strategy is based on three factors. So one is the political environment. One is the resources that you have, the candidate. The resources are your disposal, or that you can marshal your disposal to run your campaign. And finally, your opponent, your political opponent or your opponents. Can you discuss what do you see Liberia's current political environment to be for you as a candidate, to be running for office at this time? Those three things, if you would discuss the political environment, the resources you and Councillor Gongloe have to run your campaign, and your political opponent. It could be one opponent or many opponents, just based on who you think factors in your campaign strategy.
So the political environment of Liberia, we hope, I'm hoping that it could be better. So it's a difficult terrain to operate in terms of the pre-electoral violence we're seeing. We conducted for the first time anti-corruption march through the principal streets of Monrovia. We were stoned in the process. In fact, a big stone missed the councillor right on top of his head. We are thank God that he was not affected, but a lot of members, a lot of our marchers got affected, got hurt during that time. So we're seeing pre-electoral violence. One reported in the Kidmont area today. There's a lot of tension between the Unity Party and the ruling CDC. Their supporters. We're seeing war of words on social media. So the political climate is very tense right now. So it's a difficult terrain to operate in. However, I think the majority of Liberians are peaceful and they want peace. They don't want to see the dark days anymore. So anytime we see a form of violence, we do condemned it, like we saw what our own campaign day, the toting of casket of another presidential candidate. That was wrong. So that's the terrain we are operating in right now. So, however, I think we're very determined because majority of Liberians want peace. Majority of Liberia are peaceful. They want a country that will support them. They want a country where their children have access to quality education. So they're looking forward to that. And for us, we are there to champion that cause. So not the distractors, those who like to get into violence. We're not going to be violent. We're never going to take a violent trend against anybody. When they stone us, we have the ability with our supporter to stone back. We said no. All we did, we ran away. The crowd was dispersed. In our statement, we staged a press conference and issue our statement. So we remain peaceful, even if other people trying to make it uncomfortable through the means of violence. So that's the overall political climate right now. In terms of the resources, we do have resources to be able to run our campaign. We are not rich, and we are not also looking for riches. Those who have a lot of money and are giving them money out, the point here is they're not getting the money freely. I mean, most of the money are stolen money, especially when we talk about the incumbent and in terms of the kind of money they're wasting. When I demonstrate the Adman, normally I don't have my cola in my hands, but normally I have 2 pieces of cola.
I saw when you did that.
Exactly. Yeah. You see that I demonstrate one as to this natural resource that is in the hands of these people, how they eat everything in election time, the little piece that is there, that's what now they use to run campaign to fool our people. And if you're dealing with a country that is largely impoverished, some people fall for that. But we are also telling them that this is not the way to go. And many of them are becoming to realize that they cannot take that involved. So, and we have a lot of people here in the U.S. and around the world who are supporting us. They are printing flyers, banners. They sponsoring different groups across the country. So in terms of that, we really have a lot of support going on. So we do have resources to be able to run our campaign. So that is not a limiting factor so much. And because we don't have it to waste like other people, we use different set of methodology. We innovate, and our innovations are taking hold in terms of the number of people we are willing onto ourselves in terms of the electorates. And the last one was the opponent. Right. How we view our opponent in terms of this. I think, there are many. We talk about some of the major ones. We talk about the incumbent. Of course, the incumbent administration has been a failure. That's the reason why when I travel to clinic, I see wearing nurses at clinic. Sometimes they say that we've been in it for so long. I sit here. A woman will come here with, I know her condition. I'm supposed to solve it. I don't have the material. I don't have the medication. I know she's going home to die. I sit here many times. I cry. The problem that we can solve, we don't have the materials and the medicine to treat those people. That's the effect right now. When people cannot find job, or when young men are disgraced in a way that they are not able to cater to their family, many of whom are getting on drugs. When the country is open of drugs, and a lot of drugs are coming in, about 20% of the young people on drugs right now. So clearly, the indicators are failure of the sitting government. So they are not to be re-elected. Clearly, there's a need for alternative in terms of that. I think that's how far I can say it in terms of the kind of opponent we're going through. The rest of the people, I think we can easily galvanize them in terms of a rerun. And we'll go for second round. The rest of the people, I think clearly, I think they share some of our value. We do share some of their values, and there's a possibility at some point, but right now, even there are some tension, right, in terms of how we set ourselves apart from them, and what it could be a vice president who once degraded the man who he's serving now as vice president to him, specifically Mr. Kuhn, in the past interview when he said that Umar Joe Parker was too old and his brain was failing, the brains were going down. He set the example on his father, talked to the old man so nastily, and today he will come back to be able to say, "Oh, okay, now I can serve you." I think it's very disingenuous on his part that way. You can't do that. I don't even know why Obed Joe Walker chose him, if at all. He was already talking to him like that in the past, and or we see somebody from Nima talking about, oh, the woman is old. And if we select him, the vice president, they weren't going to be doing the job. So there's a motive. There's a ugly motive. So this is not a view to serve a country. It's a personal motive, kind of. And the Liberian people cannot vote somebody because of that. I think it would be a mistake if you do.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me go to Honorable Graves.
Thanks for having me on another Tough Talking Thursday. Mr. Suitor guest, welcome, and thanks for joining us tonight. Yeah. So I listened intently to your deliberations, and I thought you came across as somebody who knows at least one or two, and why you're in this race, and why you think you can be a better team in the partnership with Councilor Gongloe. Give him my best regards, and he's somebody I have known for a very long time, somebody I've also worked with. I know very, very well. He knows me very well as well. And I just want to commend you all for the endeavor, taking all this, making this sacrifice to at least test our democracy in Liberia. And yeah, so I listened to you very, very intently, like I previously said, and I heard you talk about I commend you for the spies you bring into this race amongst a lot of the candidates that we see. Talk about integrity, character, because competence is not all we look for leadership. You have to have the character, the moral standing, and you got to have that knowledge of and sensitivity of who the people are, what exactly you wish to do, how you can make some impact, not just criticism all along the line. Like most of our oppositions, like criticize. What are some of those contributions that can impact our economy, can impact our society, and positively? So, however, leadership will not only be relied or dwell on values and character. So I wish to go further, but at this juncture, I would like to listen to the summary of your policy, because you have a precise policy for this venture, and I can go too much. I got a lot of questions, but I would like to have the opportunity to listen to the direct policy to this venture you're in, at least a little summary, and I'm looking forward to hearing the implementation and the planning process, how you wish to relate to our society, to the people. Forget about all the opposition, all the stripes are going around and infighting and all that. But the common people, the people who really need this impact, this positive impact, how you carve your policies to resonate with them, to impact them, the implementation and planning stage of those policies. We also know the economy of like Tadadulu just asked, economy is of a government or a country has to do with the management of resources, the production and consumption. So how best can you manage your resources in the production form and all of that? How you plan to strengthen our economy, looking at those attributes. So I will leave it there for now, and I wish to come back when I have at least had the opportunity to listen to some of your policies. I did a summary of the direct policy. I know there are a lot of things we'll talk about, but the direct policies that you have on this endeavor, how you want to resonate, what you want to explain, how you want to implement the plans for our country as we find ourselves now. Let us not forget also that the world all over has had a problem and a serious economic setback from the pandemic. That 2 years, 3 years going of real setback is not easy. The recovery stage is not something that can be done overnight. So a lot of the problems that we got to be very honest that there are a lot of delay in things that we wish that government would have achieved or government would have completed, and we find out that those things are still lacking. We should just consider those things. And also the issue of the casket. I've heard it 1 or 2 times, and I did a research, and I learned that there was something that happened previously, and that was dealt with vehemently by the leaders, I think, of all the parties, including the ruling party. And they were very strong on it and decided that they will not stand for that, and that should be discontinued. So I think if we have made a progress on that, that's leadership, and I think we have made a progress on that aspect of it. And I don't think we can rehash it and keep talking about it. I think going forward, we should be strong on violence, but we can talk about those things that we already, the experiences we had that have been taken care of. Now, if we're not taken care of, that would make sense that we can talk about those things now and push on those leaders, those who are involved with it, or those who are responsible for it, to speak and condemn it and make sure it doesn't happen again. Now, if it happens again, reoccur, then we have the right to now talk about it and criticize more. But I think from leadership standpoint and where you are in the opposition, if we have handled that situation and put it to bed, I think it should be live. We should let it rest and let it stay there and move forward and make sure that it's not continuous or it's not continued. Sorry. So I'll stop right there and listen to your brief summary of the policies and how you plan to implement it. What's the planning stage for Liberia? How is it going to impact our people back home, and how you plan to strengthen our economy, the consumption, the production aspect of it. Thank you.
Dr. Yarkpawolo.
Excellent. Honorable Brief, thank you very much. I do appreciate it. The policy, I think, is common sense policy. It's elementary economics, as we're talking about. We say that we're going to make sure that our policy is geared towards driving employment for Liberians. How do we do that? We enforce the labor law, the Liberianization policy that talk about certain jobs for Liberians, and the foreigners cannot take those jobs, just like in the form of enforcement. But we do something more than that. We make sure that companies, of course, we open the country up. It has been opened up in the past, but if you open it up and there's still corruption, it make the country business unfriendly. That's why I will talk about corruption at the end of the policy, because at the end, corruption can really impede all of the processes I'm going to describe. We say that companies will come in the country if at all you establish your company outside of Monrovia 50 miles or above, you get certain tax incentive because you are going outside of the city. We're trying to decongest the city and make sure we open up the interior. In the wool industries, prior to the war, you agree with me, there were wool industries in Liberia. We say there's no more time to be exporting the law to Europe and other places. We really got to finish some of the law into finished products in Liberia. So we're talking about plywood industry, we're talking about cylinder industry, we're talking about industry wherein you produce molding furniture that can be consumed in Liberia and also exported somewhere. So that is opening the private sector, giving company incentive to start that kind of industry, which is not too difficult to do. That will be able to stimulate a lot of employment. Concession agreement, something I specialize in. I think for some of the fundamental mistakes that have been made since Firestone Day up to this point is that the way the concession agreement are written. In more instances, concessionaires come and go explore, they find what to see, they bring the information. Then in more instances, their lawyers drive it through the executive first, and then later on through the lawmakers. And we see that sometimes the benefit in those agreements are not really strong in terms of supporting Liberia. But also the monitoring weak arm of government to enforce even if it is a weak concession agreement. The government lack the monitoring power to evaluate. The concession need to be evaluated every year. They need to be audited. The government doesn't do that. So the concessionaires will behave in a way to feed that. So that is not law enforcement. So we plan to make ourselves strong in those areas so that we negotiate the concession agreement properly, and wherein we focus a lot on low-cost manufacturing, because those are the areas the job will be created, but also to be forceful in terms of monitoring, evaluating the concession agreement so that it live up to the mandate of the concession agreement, which we are seeing time again has not been happening. When we pull the pieces together, the agriculture policy, we talk about especially rice production in Liberia. So we say that the subsidies that government normally give to companies so that rice prices are lower in Liberia, we take that money and turn it inward so that we improve carry the Central Research Institute there to make sure that it's well strengthened in terms of innovation. We strengthen the arm of the Minister of Agriculture, especially the extension services. Then something we add to that, the military. We are not at war, so we're supposed to have a strong agricultural department of the military so as to help with the infrastructure. And so when we turn that money inward, leave farmers equipment so that we now move from the colors sweating cultivation, the way they traditionally doing it. And one of the reasons why, in fact, the country is not also producing rice is that the young people are now moving to that direction. Our fathers and things like my father make all the big red farm. We used to go there and drive the birds. Well, I don't want to do that. A lot of young people don't want to do that these days. So we got to modernize agriculture. We got to move to merchandising agriculture so that and we get productivity. Young people actually producing to make money, not just hand to mouth. So some of the money going in that, and so we plan to create a lot of jobs in the agriculture sector. And so that requires education. This is where our education policy come to be. We say that from ABC all the way to 12th grade, including wired and things, should be free in terms of government schools. But there are well qualified instructors. They are teaching. Those that are volunteer teachers, we regularize their status, get them the right kinds of training so they take pay because they will be evaluated. And then we say that under that policy, we make sure every country has a specialized vocational school. So it could be vocational agriculture, it can be welding, and the economy going to grow. So we got to get the manpower so that they do the job effectively. So there's not a vocational school where you go there, you graduate, you don't have a job. The vocational school is specialized. When you get from there, from internship, you are already in the job market. That is clearly possible. And under that policy, we say we eliminate illiteracy rate in Liberia in about 2 years or so. And some people think that is impossible. Our strategy will be, again, we'll free the money from corruption. We said smart high school students from 10th all the way to 12th grade, take 10 community members who can read and write. The curriculum will be developed. It will be as a curriculum guide. You go with it to teach your people after school and over the weekend, in the evening, get your women together, teach them. And then every 3 months or so, they will be evaluated. And then you will be paid. So the high school students will be paid. And as to teach, take 10 persons who can read and write, go with the curriculum and try to teach them, and we'll come and test their ability to make sure you're doing well, and you'll be paid for it. So when we do that in 2 years' time, we're able to make sure that we minimize the literacy rate in Liberia significantly. Of course, colleges are well funded, and the tuition in colleges are affordable, and subsidies are given to private institutions because it's a responsibility of the government. In rural infrastructure, we bring back some of the stuff that happened during the Tugboat era to say that each county, you have a road maintenance unit. You have a public works station in each county responsible with yellow machine to grade the county road. So the road doesn't have to be paved before it be pliable. So before then, those roads, people used to move on it. You know how rainy season where you're not able to go to Sino? No. So Sino should have a public works station that responsible even to grade the road every time, so that when we raise the money, we'll be paving them gradually. Because the road is not paved, it cannot be that people will be stuck in the mud like we're seeing it right now. And so that's our role. We make sure that those are there. And I already talked about rice. I talk about job creation, culture, and the art. We plan to really promote young people in terms of how those who sing in music can actually do it for a living. That means we add entrepreneurship to the work to do, add value, and we improve sport in terms of physical fitness and the rest of it. And many more. For us to achieve all of these, we come back now to the corruption fight because everything I describe here, the money. And without the money, it's impossible to achieve any of them. So that's why we are strong on corruption. So on the corruption side, I didn't talk about health. I have there very briefly. On the corruption side, we say that we'll make sure that we audit past government, right? In the first 100 days, those who take the audit report because their names are implicated, their properties are visible in our eye. They're going to go to court, and from court, those who are guilty are going to go to jail. Their properties will be seized. We say that we publish government officials on salary on the internet, and so that's transparency. Let the people know how much their people are earning. So we make that available, and we institute what we call lifestyle audit. So every 3 months or so, you are checked. What are you building properties? The bank account you have. We want to check to make sure the source of your money. Of course, if you inherit a family wealth and the rest of it, and you already get money, that's not a problem. We just want to make sure that the money, your development you're doing, or your bank account and everything, commensurate with what you can show us. We want to make sure that no interference of the judiciary. So a policeman would not be doing his job, and then a minister call and say, "Hey, that's my interest." So we'll have a whistleblower system in a way that policeman can be able to report that intelligence gathering can be done. That is true. If that is true, that minister is fired because you're not supposed to be interfering with the police officers. It means that we increase their salary, give them good training, and make them professional police force so they are respected in their jobs. So those are the way. In the healthcare sector, we hold ourselves to a very high level and say that we don't pray for sickness, but if we are sick under our presidency, we're not going to be treated outside of Liberia. We're going to be treated in the Liberian government hospital or clinic. That's what we said for ourselves and our immediate family. So because we are not Liberian, more Liberian than other people. So with that type of standard, it means that we got to invest in the clinics. We got to make sure the government hospital, JFK and the rest of it, they are state-of-the-art hospitals. And we want to make sure that our healthcare system functions so much so that we raise money. Those who are 65 years and older can get free medical care, and pregnant women and children under 5 years can get free medical care. Those in between can get affordable medical care, making sure that we have a national insurance policy so that people are insured to be able to shoulder some of the costs associated with medical care. And so those are the policy and many more we can talk about. But I will leave it here now. If you have additional questions, then I can be able to respond to them. In terms of
Dr. Yarkpawolo,
yes,
what you just enumerated looked very expensive. How are you going to pay for it?
Well, this is how we're going to pay for it.
So
It's
that's
quite the process. So first, we take control of the money by making sure we are very high on corruption, and by making sure that corruption is minimized, by making sure that those who are at the top of the government are not yet taking enormous salaries and incentives. And so we want to lower those significantly. And the saving will go some of these things. We have concessions agreement, and the agreement are supposed to be reviewed every now and then. So we'll go back.
People finish taking the concession money up to 2050, but go ahead.
Even if they take it up to that point, I know a lot of the concession agreement, they are subject to review, and every 5 years or so. And that review, things that were not done and things can be straightened up. So a lot of them are subject to review, and during the review process, we'll be able to do that. But the counselor also being a lawyer himself, he knows exactly how to go about these things in terms of using the law. He can explain that better than I do. But we will also sign new concessions. The thing about Liberia is that we are grateful. That country is resource rich, and as of our understanding up to this point, our resources are not depleted yet. To say that we have nothing, we still have something, and our population is small. We don't have an overblowing population. Liberia is very rich and can be a tourism site in Africa, in West Africa. 350 miles coastline, about 43% of the Upper Guinean forest. That forest used to stretch from Nigeria all the way to Sierra Leone. Liberia alone has 43% now. Liberia is home to 25 biodiversity hotspots in the world. One is in Liberia. And so we have all kinds of resources that if we are smart about them, we can be able to use them to be able to raise money, even in electricity. And not only the St. Paul, but the St. John, but also how about the sunshine we get? We get enormous amount of sunshine throughout the year in Liberia. So we can be able to harness the solar system for our clinic and our schools in the interior to have electricity. That shouldn't be too difficult. So I know it's expensive, but clearly we have strategy for raising the money for us to do those things.
Thank you. Honorable Grace, your follow-up, and then we'll go to...
Yeah, I will come back again, but just briefly, as I listen to you, I know one of our major problems there, and thanks for the deliberations. I mean, it was clear, put forth. I mean, good job having on the top of your head your exactly what you wish to have in Liberia. Although, like Dennis said, those are very aspirational projects and very expensive as well. Where the money come from and all that, those are some of the problems. And like we all know, education, better healthcare, better job and investment are the issues that we all talk about in Liberia. Those are the same old issue everywhere you across the board. You'll hear that. Now, if I listen clearly, and I stand to be corrected, if you're looking at anti-corruption activities to help redirect fundings to implement some of those projects, I mean, you don't think it's far-reaching of a policy?
No, it's not. It's not because we hold ourselves accountable for everything we're talking about, because we are not exception. The country is used to the culture of impunity. So if one want to change the country, you have to be drastic about it. So there's not something about being sorrowful or we'll lower the bar. No, we want to change the culture, right? The culture of impunity has to be changed, and something there got to be a red line. Boom, you stop it and reverse the whole thing. Let me tell you something. Today, Liberia has freedom of speech. Before then, it was never like that. And freedom of speech, largely, Eden Johnson Sirleaf will take credit for that because during the 12 year of a tenure, people spoke many times, freely, calling radio station being established and the rest, talking everything you wanted to talk. So freedom of expression is now a kind of culture in Liberia. And any government who come, you want to change that, you will become unpopular because the citizens have gotten used to it. So corruption and impunity in Liberia is a form of a culture. So nobody going to come slowly. You say you're going to change it. You got to come very drastically and arrest the situation, and you show the product to the Liberian people. So if you fight corruption hard and you see that the Liberian people are getting electricity, they're getting water, they're getting school, and you are informing them that because we took this policy 6 months ago, this is the kind of saving we have got, and this is how we invest in the country. You see that they will start to trust you. Even those who are not paying property taxes will begin to pay property taxes. And the government will be able to raise more money. But there has to be trust in government. And as we stand right now, there is not trust in government. And so it makes government really difficult to do anything. So to institute that trust against, especially on the line of corruption, everything I said, we don't say is far reaching. I think it's doable, and I think we should do it.
Mr. Sirleaf.
Yeah, so Dr. Yarkpawolo, let's take a step back because it looks like in our politics, in our particular electoral politics during campaigning, everybody is on the same side of the issues. The issues are the same, of course, corruption, impunity, rule of law is signature for Councillor Gongloe and therefore the Gongloe campaign, right? But when it comes to agriculture, the economy, you listen to Alexander Cummings, you'll hear some of the exact things that you've recited to us here. And also we like to think that the Liberian electorate is not an issue-based electorate, right? People vote based on personality, politics, based on all kinds of other factors that are outside the control of the candidates themselves. For example, regional politics, tribal politics, religious affiliation, these all over the world, anywhere in the world, these are factors that a candidate doesn't control. And these are factors that we cannot overlook, of course. Your value position, your what religion you come from, what region you come from, what tribe, all of those things, what race in like in America here, these are factors that play out. Okay. And so I like to push a little bit on you and see where you come, how you come up on this, because no matter the culture or the context of the election, the people, there are issues, there are electoral issues that are driving the direction of those on the fence, of the independent or those who are undecided yet. Because at the end of the day, you have those who are for Councillor Gongloe, no matter what you do there for Gongloe. There are those who are against Gongloe, no matter what you do. And there's a small middle. All the candidates are fighting over. How do you create that contrast aside from your signature issue of corruption and rule of law? Do you see any particular issue that you believe your camp, your candidate, and yourself are on the other side of it, on the right side of it, that everybody else is on the wrong side? Is that an issue that is not just a matter of recitation, that this is really a cardinal issue that is important to the Liberian electorate today, that's driving the election? This will decide the election, and we are on the right side. Can you identify that issue and then tell us why you believe you're on the right side of that issue?
So, excellent question. So, everything you described, they are quite in place in terms of how elections are held around the world, connection and the rest of it. One thing we have done differently is even the councillor himself. Councillor traveled to more than 325 towns across Liberia, outside of Mosorado County. The only candidate to have done so many areas, and he was intentional about it. And so reaching to the people in the villages, in the town, sleeping in the town, learning more about them, but allowing them to express themselves. And in one instance, he told me he actually went to Prince Johnson's home, and he was trying to talk about, he was trying to ask their view about War Crime Court. And so he asked them and said, he laid a premise: if a soldier go on the front, even you kill 1,000 people on the front line, you're fighting one another, it's not a problem. But how about those who leave from the front line, they go and start raping women, killing civilians, and the rest of it? Like some of those things happening during our war here. Should those people go free? Everybody in the town said no. Those who left the battlefront and committed heinous crime like that, they all say they should be prosecuted. You understand? Not only that, he went and slept in former President Doe's home. All right, he slept there. And his reason of sleeping there was to explicitly tell the people of Grand Judah that this is not a Nima versus Grand Judah thing here. I'm a unifier. I'm coming as the father of the nation to make sure to unify the entire country. And so for that reason, the kind of high examples, right? People trust him, people believe. So those are the things we're doing differently. And talking about this whole code here, quite recently there was a publication in the front page news newspaper that one institution conducted a survey of first-time voters, and they asked a simple question: what they care about more in this election. 93% said they cared about the establishment of War and Economic Crimes Court. That's the rule of law. We are very strong on that. And we carry our broom, and everybody know that the broom is standing for that. You understand? So it's completely distinct. And these people, these first-time voters, 93%, they say they care about this thing. And if they care about it, we are positioned from our example, what everything we've done and everything we say we're going to do, we are more trustworthy. And so even our campaign style, even the district are running, some of the innovation we have done, even in Bond County, we innovated and put a whole factory down to produce palm oil. It doesn't use gasoline. It doesn't use fuel. It uses heat. A very innovative innovation that we brought from India. or some other thing. I'm here. I'm going to be visiting Purdue University. We have worked there with some other equipment where you get post stuff. Even potato green, you can dry it for 2 years. It can be sitting for 2 years. When you cook it, it turn fresh again. But our sauce. So those kind of innovation that we are carrying on that require government investment. The solar dryer I'm talking about from Purdue University, the Kenyan government bought more than 10,000 of those to give it to their farmers in Kenya, right? So that we don't have food waste. Because a lot of things also is that we have waste of food, wastage of food in Liberia that they are not able to be preserved. You understand? So we are doing all these things simultaneously. We want to make sure we amplify it. I don't think any kind of political party, any individual is drilling down deeper to these people and talking to them the way we are doing it and setting the examples that we are setting. So we are very, very distinct. Even though the problem are the same, of course, the problem are poverty problem, they are the same, but the solutions are completely different. And our solution, as I described them, they are practical. As we communicate with our people, they are clear. And so when it comes to tribalism, we are very neutral. We want to unify the entire country and start our mode, right? That's why, we are strong in different parts of the country.
Thank you. Dr. Duke.
Yes. Doctor, you talk very good. That's very good. I want to ask you one practical question. Let's say Gongloe is in office and then he say, Mr. Vice President, here's a file of all the concession agreements. You start with metal steel, and then you go to file soon. How you going to, let's say that, the time of review has come, and then you have the dossier. How are you going to approach that?
I think the approach will be simple because I'm an expert in the field. I also know those who are experts in the field. So this is not something that one person can say, I'm going to do all, right? You need to build consensus. So it's about having a small team, maybe 5 person or so, to look at the concession agreement. And you try to direct questions in line with the Constitution, in line with the aspiration of the Liberian people. You ask them specific questions about the concession agreement. Get them key point as to review the concession. What are those things they should look for? What are they are there? What are they are not there? And so I think the process would be to be able to institute a small committee. But because in fact concession and that of is one of the things I studied because I do land rights and poverty reduction. And my dissertation really talk about the history of concession in Liberia and the way forward. So that's something I have expertise in personally, but I also know people who can help. So the thing is to be able to get a small committee, get them guardians as to what to look for, and produce a report. And that report, along
what
with
will you be looking for?
Yeah, that was my question. What are you looking for? Where are you going to take metal steel to say this is what Liberia wants to do with you as exporter of iron ore? What is your vision? All these mining things, they're taking things out. So what is your vision?
So I think, let's take metal steel for example. There was the whole rigmarole about the railroad, that they do the railroad and any kind of loyalty on that railroad should go to the company. Well, that is not a fair kind of way that you do business. All right. So we look at our whole scenario to say that how can you get a railroad, the use of a railroad right to this company, especially when Guinea were trying to export their part of iron ore through Mount Nima, because from there to Buchanan to the sea is shorter. So we want to look at that and see what wrong with that, because that need to be reviewed. That right that's supposed to be given to the company. We want to look at that. We want to look at the iron ore itself. Even the loyalty they are paying on iron ore. Is it really fair when you take the global trade into consideration? Are they cheating the Liberian government based upon the value of that? But also something that need to be done deeper is it possible to look at the 1920s records of the U.S. Geological Survey? They did some survey into Liberia and identified our minerals. Is it possible to go back and see the data and see what we can conduct research. Because one thing that I think is also a mistake is that sometimes these companies come, we tell them to go and search, and what they find, they can't tell us to negotiate. But if we are responsible country and responsible government, why can't we identify what we have? And we value them. So when a company come, we direct you and say, this is where this one is, and this is the value for it. And we negotiate fairly. But we take it further. Part of the negotiation with the company is the intention is to create job in Liberia. Is there a possibility, even if you're going to export some, can we finish some here? What are the areas that we can be able to partner so that we create a lot more employment for our people rather than just get taking the whole raw material out of the country? You know, the African market is opening up. So West Africa is opening up. So if you think about all Liberia population, a small or no market here, of course we have Nigeria right back. It's not too far from Liberia, which is a very, very big market of more than 150 million people. You see that? Maybe 200 or more million people. So we have markets around. So is it possible for us to finish some of these things so that our people can get the needed employment? As long as you continue to export the raw material, the employment created is too small. Because a machine is the one that digging the rock, grinding it, putting it in machine take it. What the employment that is created there? So we'll be focused on especially job creation, and through those we'll be looking at those with the lens, so that the company is still doing business, they still make profit. We're not against that. When you make business, you do make profit, but the incentive we get is the job that is created and how our people's lives are transformed because of that. Social responsibility, corporate social responsibility, and what the money is supposed to be paying for the land and how that money is used in terms of what I could be water system, electricity, building schools for our people. Those kind of things we'll look into it. Because sometimes they are in a concession agreement. They are not in detail in a way. But then even there's not enforcement. Sometimes zero enforcement. And so the companies don't comply to the provisions in their agreement and they get go free. We'll be looking at all those.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are just joining us, this is Tough Talking Thursday. Our guest, Dr. Emmanuel K. Gongloe-Yarkpawolo. He's the Vice Standard Bearer of the Liberian People's Party. He's the number 2 man to Councillor Tiawan C. Gongloe. Dr. Yarkpawolo, the current president on the campaign trail boasts of a couple of accomplishments, right? Few of those, free WAEC, or he pay WAEC fees, free tuition for public colleges and university, roads, in fact, they call him the bar road medicine, hospital, rural housing, and so forth. I just want you to look at the first 3 in education, the WAEC fees, the free public university and colleges. What will the Gongloe team do differently? Or will you say, yes, this is commendable? Or what will you do differently? Or what you could have done if you have that opportunity to serve?
It is wicked for you to take public money and turn it and make it as if it is your money. You turn yourself into like a godfather for a group of people. And that money is not yours. It's dishonest. The money is not your money. It's taxpayers' money. It's government money. But you take it and you turn around and do something with it and say, I did it. In the case of YFE, I think that's disingenuous. And that's one of the things that is undermining our democracy. Government should be functioning as government. And nobody should be taking government money and using it as if it's their money. It's wrong. You know, taking that glory for nothing. That glory doesn't belong to you. The YFE and the rest of it is government money. So you say government pays YFE. Now I pay YFE. You don't have that money. And before you became president, you never had that money. It's government money. But you're trying to personalize it. Is another form of corruption. Under our administrations, we say from ABC to 12th grade, free education, including the payment of YFE. And that's the Liberian government responsibility. I'm not going to say that Dr. Yarkpawolo, Councillor Gongloe is the one that paying that. We tell the people it's taxpayer money. It is a policy of government. We're implementing the policy of government, so government takes the credit.
Right. So your problem here is the credit, but the government of Liberia paying WIAC fees and having free public colleges and university, that's commendable, because you were saying Councillor Gongloe and Dr. Yarkpawolo will do the same thing.
Let's talk a little bit about the free tuition for universities. You know, that is problematic.
And what will you do differently? Because I heard you saying you'll do the same thing.
Do is what I described. Our free education is from ABC to 12th grade. You understand? To set the foundation why you do that at that level. One, children is the responsibility of the government to educate the children of the country. Children are young. A lot of parents don't have that opportunity, right? They don't have that opportunity to send their kids to school. When one is going to university, in more instances, that person is 18 and above. They are adult. What you do is you get good university system, and there's employment opportunity in the country, part-time and the rest of it. So students are able to pay their fees. You don't jump and go you say you're making the public university free, and the high school system is completely zero. Then where the students coming from to feed into the public education system? I think that's a little bit premature, and that's not our message.
Thank you.
I think also, you know, I wanted to say something about that WIAC thing, because if you look at it, I mean, Joshua can take credit or not take credit, but if you look at it, the WIAC is part of the curriculum, because you have to pass that exam to get into certain, you know, to move out of the high school system. Therefore, it's part of the government obligation to the students to provide a WIAC. So we've been actually cheating people by asking them to pay WIAC fees in the first place. That I've been always thinking about. I said, why do Joshua have to take credit for that he did it? In the first place, WIAC is part of the curriculum, because if you don't take WIAC and pass it, you don't get to the university of your choice. It means that you have not completed high school, or you did, but you didn't finish it. So because it's part of the official curriculum, it's part of the government obligation to pay to the students as part of that mid-level education. As a teacher, that's what I would say.
Mm. But Dr. Dugley, they say previous president didn't do it, and so we did it, or we are government. Yeah. So
well, maybe we have found that there was a maybe we have found that there was a loophole in the process, and say, okay, I'm going to correct the loophole, but I'll take credit for it, which is genius. Because WIAC is supposed to be paid for by the government. If Weah did it, he did the right thing, but you know, how he take credit, he does not take credit, that's a different thing. But from now on, people have to understand that WIAC is part of the curriculum. And as part of the curriculum, government has the obligation to pay for it.
Thank you. Honorable Grace.
I think as a leader, like the guest just spoke about, servant leadership is a leader being flexible, a leader who understands the plight of his people, whether the emergency situation, or making critical decisions at critical times. And I find this plausible, because there's a president who saw the need and did not wait for the policy and the bureaucracy to take place. He handled the situation as it was at the time. And now it has formed part of the government policies. It's a good thing. We should be, I mean, opposition, whatever, we should be very frank, very positive on this, and commend the president for the decision taking. I don't think there's any, he didn't use the money personally for his personal well-being, as you characterize it as corruption. He used it for a purpose, for the children, for our youth. He's the president. He had the right to make the decision. He made it, and it was for the right purpose, and it was impactful. And now it has gone down into government working system as a policy. Moving forward, the government will always pay the WIAC fees of these children. So let it not be too personal about that. I think that's positive, and we should be earnest to admit this. Now,
it's President Weah who's making it personal, as if it's his own money. That's why he's
the president. Wherever go back in this government, we criticize the president for good decision making.
But government policy, that is
criticize the president. When it comes to government, we criticize the president for good, for bad decisions. We criticize the president for, I mean, we applaud the president for good decisions. So whenever when you take it, he's the president of the country. He makes that decision. So it's his decision. It's his policy. Now, was it impactful? Was it personal? That's what we should be looking between, drawing the lines. Now, is it going to be continuous? Is it going to go into government policy so that when he's not there, a successive leadership of government that comes will implement those same projects? That's what should be focused, I think. Now, back to the policy issue. Somebody's
Yeah, I
talking?
was going to say, yeah, I think the problem is that where I did it. I think the problem is taking it as a personal gift to thousands of students who are going to vote. I think that, that's why that's how people see it. That's where they criticize. I mean, to say, oh, you know what, guys, my government found out that you don't need to pay YF fee because it's part of the government obligation to you. So we're going to implement it as from now. I think that would have been a more positive message to the kids, because the people don't feel like they're beholden to Mr. Weah as president, but they owe to the government because it's a government policy. That's what I think that you're making it personal, but I don't think people take it personal. Weah made it personal. He said, it's me doing it.
And that's
a problem.
That's what I came from.
Yeah, when people are voting for you, you come and say, okay, I give $10 to everyone in this classroom. They say, yeah, chief. I think that's it. You could have said, my government found out that this money belongs to you. So as of now, we're going to implement it. And I think he would have even been more popular. Say yes.
That's how government works. That's how government leadership works. The government here take credit for good decision making, and they get criticized and condemned personally for bad decision making. It's just general, and that is acceptable. So he can say, I did it. Doesn't mean he's the president of the country. If he was an independent person doing that, that's a different thing. And using organizational money, that's a different thing. He's the president. He's the leader. It was not in place. It was not part of the government functionaries. It was something that he made a personal decision as the president to make it was actionable and impactful, to make an impact at the time. So that's wise decision making.
I don't think they are disagreeing with you. It's impactful. It got all the good things, but it is not his personal project. It's government initiative.
That's what I'm saying. I don't think anybody saw it as his personal money he took from his bank account.
But you are saying yes, he's the president. This government policy. This government.
He is the president of the country. He took a decision that was never a part of the government policy. He made that decision. So he can go out and say, I did this. It doesn't change anything. The only thing is it going to be continuous? Is it going to be part of the government moving forward? That's what we should be looking forward to. Anything goes good in the government, the president takes the credit. Anything goes bad in the government, we criticize and condemn who? The president. So that's where I'm coming from. That's what I'm saying. So I don't think this will be much of an issue that we should. Once it was impactful, it was an actionable decision that he took, and it was very impactful to the children of the youth of our country. And now it is going to be a policy issues moving forward, and we should appreciate that. So he can go up and say, to go up at this hotel and say, hey, I paid the YFE. Yes, President George Weah, during his tenure, President George Weah made a decision to pay students YF fees. That's it. I mean, I don't see anything about that. Now,
before you go to that next issue, Sharif want to also chime in on that. Mr. Sharif, I saw you raising your hand.
Well, no, I want to go to a different issue territory. So I'm not going to win that debate with Honorable Greaves. You are the president, you are the head of the administration, you have an administration. Yes, if you devise a public policy prescription that is successful, you can say our administration, because this is the Liberian people tax money. This is the government is the government of the people, by the people, and for the people. Okay, so of course during political campaigns, people say, look, we championed this and it was successful, but if you engage in a type of policy making that is sporadic, is sort of spasmodic, and and you take credit for it in that respect, people have problem with it, right? I mean, because yes, anyone who's heading an institution or a nation, of course, by extension, you take credit. The reflection of credit comes to you if you do something that's successful. If your policy direction fails, people will say, yeah, you took bad decisions. The country has failed, the government has failed. But I think personalizing it, making that a campaign issue, that's where people have issue with, and I agree with those who have issue with that.
You just criticize your own point. When you criticize,
I
you
did
criticize the
not. My
president.
argument was very consistent.
Do I have the floor? You're only interrupted just now.
No, but you blatantly, said something.
Okay.
I
You
did
call
not.
my discard you mentioned Honorable Grief. So let me talk. You talk. You have the time. On this show, I've heard you so many times criticizing President George Weah as the president of Liberia. You never said the government. President Weah is this, President Weah is corrupt, or what have you. What I'm saying, the decision he took, and our studio guests can bear with this, was a decision he took personally as the leader of our country at an emergency period, critical issues. Leadership requires critical decision making at the time when it's needed. So he took that position. Moving forward, it is going to be a government policy because it's not going to be something that we're going to follow through on. It's not going to be his self-glory anymore. But at the time he took, it was impactful, it was actionable, and we should commend him for that. Just as you said on the show many nights and criticize not the government but President Weah. So he gave him the credit. If he made it, the government, he's the president. He's sitting at the top. He will be criticized and he will be commended. And that's it. We shouldn't go forward too much into this thing, Back to the policy plan, our honorable guest. And I'm gonna tell you, you're deliberated so well. My only problem here now, my only contention is that there's so many things that you have propounded on, and they are very expensive, especially for our country. Looking at how our economy is structured, our government is you look at this previous government right now. They came with the same aspirational plans and hope and what have you. And looking at the formation of our economy, that we are partly dependent on international partners, not just ourselves. So you might have good intentions. You might have all of those things that you want to implement for our people, which is fair. The spending becomes a problem. Like we just saw, we got 6-year term. 3 of those years went in the waste because of the cost by the pandemic. And countries all over the world are in decline right now, struggling and trying to recuperate from the same pandemic like we are experiencing in the U.S. So we saw that the government, one can judge it and say it's a failure. One can say, well, it has some hurdles and challenges because of the way things are settled in our country, the way the whole economic process is structured, depending on partners, because partners come in with a lot of the projects that should be undertaken. They pledge. Sometimes they don't even have the money. They pledge and they go to do a fundraiser to come to carry on these projects. Some of these money are put in holding accounts and they go in phases. So at a certain time when this phase is complete, they pump in more money. So you got to keep sending by and what have you. And the government is sometimes handicapped to those projects. So we had the good news in the newspaper, in the media. The country has pledged 20 million, 80 million, or what have you. The road project is going to be done. We have a time frame, a whole roadmap drawn down. And then you find out things start stalling because those partners have not come in with their side of the bargain. And we saw what happened with the pandemic. So 3 years, almost out of the tyranny of this government went into the thin air, went into waste. So how do we reconcile that? Do we just put a blade into the field of corruption or what have you? Because I see your deliberations.
Can I interrupt quickly? Do you have a question at the end? Because we want to be very judicious with time here. If you have a question or if not, you can conclude your statement so we can. I want us to close in the next 30 minutes. Go ahead.
The time you took to say all that, you just took all the time from me. You just lost my whole sense of thought.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a question,
I would just come and just talk. I'm giving a background so he understands what I'm coming from.
I'm talking
And
about.
when I make a conclusion with a question, I will go back to him. So you know that's obvious.
Yeah, but I want you to
you just interrupted my speech of
brief.
thought and made a long. So anyway, where was I in fact?
You are at the
So
point where you were talking about
in your deliberations, you spoke about conducting talking about what the solar energy, which has not proven to be effective. Solar panels, are very expensive, as you know, and do not always prove to be good for any region or any or weather or whatever. So these are all great ideas. I mean, have some difficulties and not a fit for Liberia. So I don't know how you see whether if apart from the last one is apart from. I'm just struggling now because you really took me away. Apart from anti-corruption activity, you redirecting funds to implementing your policies. What are your plans? Because we spoke about the domestic issues and all of the plans you have and policies and what have you. What are those plans you have for attracting international investment, especially potential ones and whatever? So that you don't fall in the same problem as this government is, being handicapped and have wasted 3 years, not 100% on them, but international partners as well, not coming through with their side of the backing. That's my whole thought.
Wonderful, Mr. Honorable Grace. Thank you very much. I do appreciate all of your comments, even though some of them are subject to questioning as well. But I think at the end, the question is a beautiful question because it's a policy question. So since we don't have much time, we'll hold all of your opinions, like you clearly stated them. We'll just go ahead and address the question. One thing that we all should realize is that no country should depend on another country for development. International community cannot develop your country. It's impossible. What they can do is you develop your country, they can complement what you are doing. Because the assistance they provide, like you get clearly stated, they are very minimum. They are small. And in fact, in their own countries, they are faced with challenges. All right, they're dealing with their own politics. So you don't depend on them. What you do is you lay the foundation, they come in with any help to complement what you are doing, but you bear the responsibility as a country to develop yourself because that's why you are a servant nation. All right, you don't just get political independent, you're actually independent. You're supposed to take on economic independence to better the life of your people. One of our international policy in terms of what we're doing, in fact, me being here in Madison, let me just tell you 2 instances what we've done so far. I met up with the president of the Madison College. We discussed so many things because they have a system of curriculum integration in the state wherein their smart students from 11th and 12th grade can take some courses in high school that can be counted towards their college credit. That's innovation. And they have the pathway system where 2 students doing associate degree, one will go on to pursue a BSc, the other one will get stopped at associate. Those curriculum are structured differently. So we're here to learn from them, and we advance our educational policy to them. So they are willing to help Liberia in terms of capacity, in terms of how do you get that kind of curriculum going to roll it in an institution. So that is to support our educational policy. Or even yesterday when I met up with the city mayor of Madison, talking about green cities, waste management, their transport system they have in the city, wherein everybody tap into that transportation system. So you don't have Minister of Finance with their own bus, NSA with their own bus, everybody buses in the whole place. The LU and the buses are breaking down. How about the ordinary citizen? So they have a centralized transportation system that every institution tap into. Like we have the Monrovia Transit Authority. We haven't been able to get that institution strong enough post-war to serve the city of Monrovia. We discussed all of that in terms of the linkages, who to contact, in terms of knowledge transfer, how to do that. So we already, as candidate, we are already starting our international policy that way, and that's how we'll continue. The thing about the international community is that you have to set yourself and be credible. When you set yourself and be credible, they will come to your assistance. You know that they pass government at some point. The international communities in Monrovia, they wrote the government and said, stop taking NGO money. You are taking NGO money. You're not supposed to do that. Those are development money, not because it's in your bank. What is the credibility if international partners are telling you that? That's disgraceful. So when you're trying to say, oh, there are challenges, pandemics, and all of that, don't you think? Please do not compare us with this administration. There is nothing to compare. What a qualification, what an experience, what are our value system. They are completely different. And so that's not something to measure us with them. The pandemic, countries are recovering from the pandemic. Countries that had strong economy prior to the pandemic, they bounce back based on their economy. If your economy was very weak and largely export oriented, wherein your own basic food you consume, you cannot produce, everything has to come from abroad, you'll be affected badly because you don't do anything home, everything has to come from abroad. And when somebody is abroad affecting the global community, you take hit.
So can I just interject, because I think
that's what we're saying. That's what we're saying. That let me just finish with this.
Okay.
The moderator can give you the floor. Either one we're listening to, but that's what
no, I just want to interject.
that's what we're saying. That on our administration will focus on local production. If we focus on especially our stable food and other things, finished product, if even there is global shock, not that will not be affected, but will not be badly as affected as we are now if we just depending on everything to come from abroad. I submit.
Thank you.
I have a question.
30 seconds for your interjection.
So you did not speak. You did not address the solar energy policy.
Let me get that very quickly.
Have you done a feasibility study, and if so, what are the lessons learned? How is it impacted? How can it be impactful in Liberia? So it's very cost effective and proving not to be effective as well.
As somebody who also part of my work in renewable energy, so solar system is very effective. It can be very effective. We have built solar system in different parts of Liberia, and they are working. Liberia get a very good sunshine. We can tap into solar system. Even my own village where I was without school until the age of 14, I built school there today. It has running water. It using a small pump, using solar system to pump water up, and the kids there are using running water to fresh the bathroom, not even a commode. That can be applicable. So, in fact, there's a whole book written on solar system. The cost of solar has been dropping down over the last 5 years, and Liberia is quite positioned to be able to do that. It was under that renewable energy system. I talk about the factory that we built using thermal energy. That is not solar, it uses heat. But even when I describe, I don't have the picture of solar dryer. If I show you solar dryer where you put stuff and you put it in the sun, it dries very clean without any fly touching it. You get it tested. You test it when the meter reads below 60, that means that food is dry. It can be kept for up to 2 years. And anytime you cook it, it will turn fresh. So solar is very good and it's applicable. The only thing is that, in fact, at my house now, I use solar system. The LEC is not stable, but last almost 4 years, I've been on solar straight. It been supplying me at my own house in Monrovia. So solar system is very effective.
You intend to generalize that for the whole Liberia?
Thank you. Let me give the chance.
Yes, I'm telling you how we're going to use it. I gave an example about I can be multiplied.
Hold on, Dr. Duke. Let Salif come and then Dr. Duke. Then we'll read some comments.
Okay, so Dr. Yarkpawolo, let's talk about foreign policy. Let's talk about foreign affairs, foreign relations. Because
that go into our guest the comment too. So go ahead.
Exactly. Okay. Very good. Okay. So, of course, a lot of what you've described as your part of your campaign platform and your strategies to govern, or you to be given the opportunity, can feed into some foreign policy objectives. But specifically, what is the Gongloe campaign's vision for Liberia's position in the world, Liberia's position in the region? whether it's on the trade side, whether it's on the political side, on defense, on development. What is the foreign policy leaning of Gongloe-Yarkpawolo administration?
The basis of our foreign policy is enshrined in the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights. So the basic fundamental of everyone, every human being, is to be respected. So that's the foundation. And we are a democratic nation. We practice democracy. So in terms of the governance structure, we will strengthen our institution so democracy can flourish in Liberia as a beacon of hope in Africa. Our policy will continue, the United States will continue to be a strategic partner to Liberia under our administration. In the meantime, we will extend our relationship to other friendly nations and countries that don't respect the declarations of, as enshrined in the United Nations Declarations of Human Rights. We will be skeptical in the way that they deal with themselves and how to deal with people. And when it comes to speak internationally in terms of truth and justice, we will be on the side of justice. So that will underpin everything else we will do. Realizing that the United States of America, from the foundation of our country up to this present, has been strategic partner, and that partner relationship will continue.
So are you implying, or are you saying you will hold the United States, our traditional ally, you maintain that at the same time, you do business with China, you could do business with Russia, you could do business with or any nation that you consider friendly nation? How you balancing that geopolitics there? Because it doesn't go without consequences or implications for a particular country.
Well, I think yes, we be prepared. There's nothing without consequence. It could get positive consequence or negative consequence, but you have to take a decision. You stand by it as a country, as a people. We hold the United States as a strategic partner, very important, and then we do business with other nations as the need may arise, and we navigate that terrain respectfully, and we navigate it. Even the United States and China, they also trade, right? You know that the two countries are equally trading, right? It could be what is on a world trade or world trade agreement and different kinds of agreement, even though they are neck to neck at some point politically, but they stay trade, right? So we as a small nation, we're not going to say, oh, we go this side, we'll now go that side. No. But whatever the case, the United States is a strategic partner in all of the dealing.
But they're fighting over Africa, and they don't agree in the WTO, for example. Anyway, there's so many areas that smaller countries become victimized. Even though these two countries trade together, they agree at some points, but the differences, the disagreements, what affect and impact other people's foreign policy. But thank you for your answer.
Yeah, he said whatever consequence they will bear.
Yeah, they'll bear.
Dr. Douglas?
Yeah, you just I forget my other question because that's will take us to. You just said that U.S. is a strategic partner. That's most of the time when Liberians hear that, say, yeah, it's U.S. created Liberia, of course, But today, is U.S. really a strategic partner to Liberia? Is it a one-way street, or is it something that we really communicate as partners, as responsible partners? But linking to that, if U.S. is that important in your politics, what would you say about U.S. sanctions on Liberians, government officials? How do you react to that? Should they be, for example, running for campaigns? Should they be, running to get back in the government from the window or the back door?
Because we are strong on corruption, and because we stand for justice, under a Gongloe-Yarkpawolo presidency, if the U.S. sanctions an individual, we will ask the U.S. government for pieces of evidence they gather on this individual that led to the institution of sanctions against that person. We will analyze that evidence under our law and gather additional pieces of evidence and prosecute the person. That's what we'll do. we will not support the person to go into governance structure. No. In fact, it's a tool, the tools that the US government will give us. And we'll be very happy to receive those tools. And perhaps we have limitation in that area, and they got the fight. We asked them about the fight, they give it to us. Under our law, we use it and prosecute the person. We're not going to be supporting the person to go by the government in any shape or form. No.
That is after your investigation, because you can also find them not guilty, not because the US give you facts.
Exactly. Thank you for that point, Dennis. So that was a good for them to face the law. All right. If they face the law and they are not guilty, of course, the law set them free. They are free because that's the law, and we'll be protecting the law.
For example, many Liberians are saying, "Oh, PYJ, but they say he sold political influence. They sanctioned him, but they didn't sanction the person he sold it to. Like somebody steal a bicycle, you sold to somebody, and then you both supposed to go to jail, right? You don't have to answer that. Thank you."
I didn't get that question too clear.
No. The question was they sanctioned Prince Johnson because they said he was selling votes. I mean, he was selling political influence, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you sanction the rogue, shouldn't you sanction the person who bought the stolen merchandise?
They sanction the buyer, the seller, but not the buyer. That's what he's asking. So was it fair? So in essence, is questioning the fairness of that sanction
Against Prince Johnson?
Yes.
Yeah. Because the other party was not revealed.
I think before the US, the US.
No. I'm not. I don't want to doubt the US something. I'm just saying why they didn't tell us who. If they're really strategic partners, they'll tell us this person, this. This is why we sanctioned them. But then you have to say you stole the money and you give it to that person, and that person is also culpable, right? Both sides, because
yes, I think under the US, their law, they carry on gather intelligence on an individual when it reach to a point where they want to name and shame the person and give them some form of punishment. They go ahead and do it. They normally summarize their view in the publication. So they don't just say we sanction this person. They actually summarize and say this person. In the case of Prince Johnson, they say he was taking money and selling votes. You know, they list several reasons why they
to whom? Who was he selling the vote to?
That's my question. Who was buying the votes? Because
they say he was making. He's a kingmaker. He's taking money to.
From whom? Yeah, from whom? We know that what they say. We want to know who they sold it to. Who Prince Johnson sold it to. So that's my question. I don't know what the Americans say. I read it. I just want to know who. Ben Prince Johnson
the seller and not the buyer.
Yeah, exactly. So if you want to investigate further, for instance, if you want to investigate Prince Johnson further, you could ask for the evidence, or you could, in gathering that evidence, you could ask also the U.S. government if he bought the vote for somebody, who the person was. You can also be able to ask. I'm quite sure they might be able to answer you, or they might not, depending on what their law says. But at least they single somebody who is doing something wrong to you.
Thank you. We have a question here from one of our viewers, Jimmy Eastman. Say, how does your team, Dr. Yarkpawolo, plan to stimulate economic activity and the development of Liberian-owned businesses?
Excellent. Those are the ones we've been talking about today. We've been talking about let's enforce the liberalization policy under our laws in the labor law of 2015, that which Councillor Gongloe wrote when he served as labor minister. That's part of it. We have already talked about reactivation of the agricultural bank in terms of those who in the farming sector and the rest of it. If we come to a point wherein a private sector loan stimulation, those are all possibilities. Again, we have to raise the money to do that. And our first point is the one we have already. Let's protect it so that it doesn't go in individuals' pocket. So like the national budget. We protect those and we carry on additional innovation in terms of reviewing construction agreement, but also establishing new ones that will create a lot more jobs. So when we combine all of those things, like Liberia maritime system, that these ships they have a lot of Liberian flag. I think they're supposed to be having Liberian employ on the ship, but in more instances you don't even find a single Liberian on that. We'll review the maritime law, international law, and then we train our people so that they can get employment on those ship as well. So all kinds of way that we're supposed to be benefiting, and other people who are heading those things, they don't know what they're doing, or if I ought to know what they're doing, corruption is their priority, and so they leave all other things that's supposed to be done. So we'll look into all those areas and close every loopholes. If we do those things, the economy of the country will be stimulated, and a lot of people will be much more on job. We haven't talked about drugs, the drug situation in the country, and I will take just a few seconds to address that. I think it's a very serious problem. This country is not going anywhere if 8 young people are on drugs as they are right now. That's really shameful. So what we do with that is we enforce the drugs law, and if they are weak, we institute new ones so as to stop the importation of drugs, minimize it to the level that is difficult to find. Okay, and then if they are producing the country, that one is very easy to stop the production in the country. That is on our purview. We can do that. Those who are already on the drugs, many of whom I have worked with, have actually realized that sometimes we always say they don't have training. No, I work with a lot of them and realized and actually documented them. I realized a lot of them already have profession, but when they start taking the drug pulled them away from their profession and got them into the ghetto. So those are master trainers. So our vocational program, those are the people that are rehabilitated. Those are the ones that will train their friends in their profession, and then they go into the workforce so that we have responsible young people who are getting married, going to school, doing different things with their life rather than getting on drugs. So I think that's something, yeah.
On the question of the economy, you consistently talk about closing loopholes. Let's say, take a ministry, for example, or take a sector. If you close all the loopholes in that sector, that there is no corruption, there's no money being wasted, how much are you going to save? Have you been able to quantify anything at all?
Oh yes, that's an important question, and that's something that it requires a little bit of drilling on the numbers. Their regular budget now, in terms of how much is allocated in the budget, and trying to see those loopholes and how much is going there and the rest of it. And to be honest with you, I haven't drilled that calculation to be able to tell you off here at this point, but it will be substantial. Because we overhaul the Monrovia Transit Authority, right? We get a lot of buses, so that those buses are carrying students, are also carrying workers to offices. We eliminate every institution having their own bus, right? If we do that, purchase of buses, maintenance of buses, daily fuel, and all the waste that go into that's a lot of saving. That can be substantial.
Any number?
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Um, 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 like I said, Dennis, I have not drilled down to the number for me to be specific, because when I tell you a number, it should be scientific. And I haven't drilled that into that, and I can say
because sometimes people talk about the corruption in the Senate representative. So sometimes I say, well, even if we close down the two houses, how much are we going to save, and how much is that money going to do? So maybe you take some time to look at the numbers.
Yeah, I think the House one or the Senate one, some of those I think they should be easy to calculate, because when they are always apportioning these 30,000, what they call legislative project, that's a figure, and you take that figure and multiply it by the number, and over a certain time you're able to you're
Right.
able to get it. So I think their own is not that too complicated, but you're right. We need to look at some of the numbers and do scenario in terms of calculation.
That way, if you tell me that we will take this money and do this, then I can see, okay, it's possible. Because sometimes the thing we think is corruption and wastage, maybe the money is not even up to 20 million. So let's be kind of careful. Stay on the economy. Just pick one, right? Prices are high now. How do you control prices? What would the Gongloe-Yarkpawolo team do? Just take prices or inflation, whatever name you want to give it. What is your prescription to controlling prices?
So I think you start by, there are several ways to do it. but it's really difficult for you to get hold of it if you cannot be able to produce what you're talking about. And the global forces will continue. That's why most of the time, not only that, even subsidies, other communities are subsidized in Liberia, and sometimes they actually on court. I visited a factory that's supposed to be producing juices in Liberia, and other things. This about $4 million sitting somewhere, but this factory was not producing because some people, some foreign businesses, they were bringing juices in the country that were either subsidized and they were super cheap and very substandard. And this person cannot produce substandard juice, so they won't be able to compute. So that kind of business need to be protected. So certain tax incentive given to local production producers need to come in because he is employing a lot more people in Liberia when he's producing these things, these juices and selling them. So those kind of until we can get to that kind of point, it becomes a little bit difficult. But that's the reason why we keep talking about let produce. Then we have control over it. Well, rice, when we start to produce rice in Liberia, that one is not too difficult. So if you produce really good rice in Liberia, right? And then right now they're selling the half bag of Indian parboiled rice, I think for $18, $19 or $20. And then you start to sell yours around $15, $12. That's competition, right? Eventually people are going to go to the cheaper one. So those are the way, but we're really big on trying to produce the one at least we can produce for ourselves. The one we can produce, the one we can produce, the formula is always to try to give some tax incentive to the importer so as to control the price.
Thank you.
While we're still on the economy, what have you? I just want us to be realistic, and let us have the flow, for fair discussion. To make one point, first of all, the biggest economies in the world today are still not yet bounced back from the pandemic. Now, especially in the United States of America, Europe, and other places, you spotted that a lot of challenges in the supply chains, and even cutting down on expenditure, and it is leading to inflations, and a lot of economic hardship. So, for anybody who think Liberia, a small country, small economy, will be better than the big economic powers, I mean, we should be realistic and look at it again. Secondly, on solar energy, where it was a trend of the Europe belt, the US, and all the big industrial countries turning from nuclear and gas and oil to solar energy, it was also discovered that the solar energy was very inefficient. I mean, the best you can get of it producing with the solar power that was effective was up to only 20%. And now you find that even Europe, they are now revisiting oil and gas. They are now going back and opening those nuclear facilities that they try to close down, what have you. So for Liberia, what you have to start having routes compatible to have it's going to be very cost effective. And all of these plans you just shared with us on how you go to raise the economy, build the economy, and government revenue to support these policies. They are laudable, but they are very expensive. And with what you just shared with us, it will be difficult to finance. And if you understand international cooperation, Liberia has been down. We do not have the capital, we do not have the strength in investment and economic power. So there's something with all countries around the world. The Great United States of America still borrows. They borrow from China, Russia, all those big countries, Japan, and what have you. So there's no country that's independent. Like we would generate our own revenue, we run our own project, and would not take money from outside. No, Liberia was crippled. Liberia was down. Liberia was struggling, and the international community came to our need. Now, in terms of international investment, that's what I ask you. What your models? What your plans for international investment? Because if you want to take us out of aid and a developmental goal and all those, you have to have a strong economy, and it has to be based on international investment, clear business, and so if you have to have the right climate to attract those businesses and what have you, and it takes time. It's not overnight. So it gives me a little problem when you talk about Liberia not depending on the international community or those international institutions in multilateral financial groups that fund nations,
yeah.
then we have a serious problem with your policies. I mean, you can say all the things you want to say is not funded, and we don't have the means of financing it. It just won't work.
Dennis, can I add something to the? Because I had a question. I had a question on the same line. Can I just add it just for 1 second? I was going to ask you, what was your opinion? Because that's the question he's asking. Homegrown wealth, where you say you just look and say, okay, this is what we have, and how can we make wealth out of it? Or sit down and be sending, letters, delegations to go beg money from outside. That was my question. Then, now I think you can go. It goes along with.
Yes. Yeah. Let me get to Honorable Greaves' point. First of all, let me make series of corrections. I didn't say we will not take international aid. I did not say that. What I said was no country in the world has developed based on international aid because the aid themselves, they are small. And like I agree with him when he described the situation, sometimes the aid is promised, it comes in pieces, and sometimes it overly control. By me saying that, I'm not saying when it comes, we will not take it. We're going to take international aid. But I'm saying that's not what we're going to depend on to develop our country, because there is no history in the world of any developed country by another country through international aid. After World War II, I know they dumped some money into Europe to try to get them, but those are Western society. There is different. That's exception. Okay. So, and then the other point also is in terms of the solar system. I work with solar system. I have it at my house. I have a small utility company in Liberia, specializes in solar. We do rooftop installation. We do different solar projects. Solar is workable. It can be workable. We applying it on a small scale in Liberia, and it's possible. I using it at my house. I'm not saying anybody say. So and there are ways that you can integrate solar. You can integrate solar with hydro. You can integrate solar with a grid system. There are all kinds of ways that you can do it so that even if there are weaknesses in terms of industrial running, you can back it up. There are all kinds of innovation in the solar industry. So that's clearly possible. It's doable. I build a school, put a smartphone that is only powered by solar. Students are getting water. So that we can multiply that in very rural schools. They will have electricity, they will have water. They will not have the diesel generator because the grid line, it will take long to reach to those places. And some of the places said to reach with the grid line, the cost is so expensive that it may not prove feasible. So we do solar in the area. So quite possible. So we will borrow. So we're not saying we will not borrow. The first thing is the problem with borrowing is you borrow the money and put the country in debt and then corrupt the money. That's what wrong. That's really what wrong. So we develop a policy on borrowing that if we borrow, that money should be able to pay for itself. So over a long time, that borrowing money be an investment. If we do a stretch of road from one point to another, and that road is very good, and we put toll system on that road, our money collected over there over time will go. Remember, you're borrowing the money, the future generation going to be responsible to pay that money. So you put that money in infrastructure that is long lasting. So that future generation, when they're paying it, they're getting the benefit. You don't get it, then you turn around and corrupt it. That's wicked. So we're not saying that every country can borrow, but at what sense? The last point, Mr. Greaves, is that you said the pandemic, even the developed countries and things have not recovered. Let me ask you this question rhetorically. The pandemic affected everyone in every country. The United States and other countries that are self-sufficient in food production, they are having food. Let's just take food for example. They haven't gone out of food. You don't go and say you don't see food. You haven't seen, they were a bit during the pandemic and immediately post. There was some increment in food prices, of course, because of the logistics about transportation. Those are recovering fast. Countries that cannot produce what they consume, They were more affected, and it's taking longer time for them to recover as compared to countries that produce their own food. That's a fact that we can check. So everyone was affected, but people are affected at different level, depending your status where you are. Yes. So the effect is different on different countries based on their capacity to absorb the shock of the pandemic. And then Dr. Duke, what was your question? Then I respond to it.
No. I was just talking about
That's not factual, though.
the wealth, homegrown wealth vs aid wealth.
Yes, that's what we continue to talk about, economic stimulation locally, because that's how you grow wealth. When you protect your citizen, when your citizen job that are allocated to them through law, when they do it, when you tie the screw, even if foreign business partners are coming, you find ways to partner with Liberians, build Liberian capacity over time, so Liberians themselves resume some of the responsibilities over their own economy. Why is it that sometimes goods are not coming through our port, but sometimes they go to Conakry, right? Before, especially a lot of Liberian-owned businesses, when they carry container to Liberia, they carry the container to Conakry, then to Monrovia. Why is it that sometimes they don't ship directly? So those got to be investigated, because it would be easy if you get shipped directly to Monrovia and all the taxes are paid. But someone that go all the way to Conakry before. I was talking about a business person. You were telling me some of the challenges they face if all the bring goods directly into the Monrovia port. So all those things got to be looked at holistically, so that your citizens are empowered. Because the more your citizens are empowered, the more your government is in power.
Thank you. Well, Dr. Yarkpawolo, thank you very much for spending 2 hours with us. At this time, we're going to go around the room for your closing comments, and Dr. Yarkpawolo will be last. Let me start with Dr. Duke.
Just to thank Dr. Emmanuel Yarkpawolo. I wanted to ask you, I said, how do you manage to combine these names? Anyway, thank you for your brilliant expose, and I think you understand where you're going. And, I know Chairman Gongloe, he never seen any trouble that he didn't go to after. So you are behind a very strong man, and I wish you luck. And, you have good friends watching you. So we hope things get better for everyone, and that you'll be part of that, making things better. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Bruce, you're closing, sir.
I just want to compliment you for the nice, beautiful presentation. I thought it was a good one. I thought it was competitive. My only downside is that there are a lot of problems over there that we don't have the time to go into, because for me, I like to be detailed. There are a whole lot of things said. There are a whole lot of policies and projects you want to undertake, you wish to undertake. They are very costly. And what you have provided us in terms of resource to finance those projects, I don't see it possible. Because first of all, solar energy has been the study I've got from a wide range of usage, and especially covering Europe. It has been proven different. Otherwise, I know in a small home, yeah, it worked. On a small scale, I don't know how it worked, but generally, it has been a very challenging project to undertake. And most of the countries, the big industrial nations, are now turning back to nuclear and gas and oil. Another one on the economy. The economy is not easy as you put it. Liberia had a serious challenge, and Liberia could not depend on itself. Even to this day, Liberia still cannot depend on itself. And that's why the International Committee of Nations have come together to assist us. It's not that we are begging, it's not that we want to be in this position, but it's because we have no other way. Our investment, we have natural resources exceptionally, but we have not reached that level that we can depend on our own investment and to trade and all that. We're still claiming. So if you have to do a research in that study to balance it and know why we are dependent upon those multilateral financial institutions. And lastly, on the what was that? On the corruption issues, I admire you, and I like the way you present. Very laudable. But I want you to be very mindful and careful on, because you have to preserve your integrity and credibility when you're talking about corruption issues. Is it based on perception? Is it based on allegations? Or is it clearly defined? Can you go to the point and the root cause? Can you see the stats that this project failed because of corruption, and we can prove that it was corrupted by these individuals, these dollars and cents and what have you? Or it was just something that played in the public sentiments that the government is corrupt and everybody just running with it that the government is corrupt, projects failed because the government is corrupt, and you want to clean. It's a good idea, a good venture to clean up the system of corruption, but you have to be factual so that you do not make, you have to be accountable as well, so that you do not create more problems than the problem you're trying to solve. And that's it. LSCC, like I tell people, is not a prosecutorial agency of government. They only investigate allegations of corruption. Those allegations, when they are substantiated and meet probable cause, is transmitted or advanced to the Department of Justice, Ministry of Justice. That's what the prosecutors are. They prosecute it. So the allegations that come to LSCC, they investigate and say, you know what, it does not worth taxpayer money because it's weak. You can't substantiate these claims, and it's dropped. So we have to take in consideration how many cases been advanced, allegations been advanced to LSCC, how many been dropped, for what purpose, what reason they've been dropped, which one been advanced for prosecution, why this person went in was prosecuted and got away free, and the government would not indict them. So all of those things we have to be like. I mean, I like the way I like your approach, but I want you to do more into that so that when you're talking about corruption, you sound credible and you come with integrity, because your running mate, Emmanuel Gongloe, was accused of corruption before. It was just a public sentiment. It was not true. It was a labor ministry. There was a situation I remember with Firestone, and there's opposition people expected him to take, because he has been an advocate before coming to government of Firestone workers. And they were saying this, oh, they bribe him and what have you. It was not the case. And then when they started to praise the successor, who was Jeremiah Salunter, for being good, and Emmanuel Gongloe failed them. And so all of those things, we got to be very mindful. I knew that was not the situation, but when we just say it in the blanket, in the open, they create problems for us, and the problem we're trying to solve. So thank you for being here, and thanks for sharing your time with us.
Thank you. Mr. Salif.
Dr. Yarkpawolo, thank you. Thank you tonight. Look, I agree with you. Corruption is not perception. Corruption is real. Councillor Gongloe is a lawyer. You don't just, grab somebody. There's a thing called due process, right? You investigate, you follow the evidence, and you prosecute where the evidence and the facts lead you. Corruption is killing pregnant women. It's killing children. It's ensuring that our education system is not competitive in the region. Our country is rich, like you said, with natural resources, but because we have this culture of taking it all for myself, once you have control over budget, it's not taking us anywhere. Yes, I mean, the facts are there. Those who have studied development, different development models, we have case studies we can show. No country has developed on aid, right? So I agree with you that yes, you take aid. You borrow selectively. You've been very careful. You've been very meticulous. You've deliberated. You've demonstrated that you are your team, you and Councillor Gongloe. This is the reason why your candidate, your ticket has become one of the major political tickets in this campaign today, and maybe number 2, number 3. I mean, people, when I listened to some radio station, they were naming candidates because Gongloe was a third in line. That is because of what you've demonstrated here tonight. We Liberians, a lot of us, for whatever reason, we like to sweep things under the rocks. Things that other countries have done, we can do too. We talk about Rwanda. People say, oh, you praise Rwanda. Yes, there's a reason why we praise Rwanda. Solar does work. It's working in America. Yeah. Renewable energy is working in Rwanda. Education is working there. They've tried things in Kenya. They've tried things in Rwanda. Singapore that we talk about. corruption was where they started. They started prosecuting high-level officials so that people underneath them got scared. And then they started paying people well. They started hiring the smartest of their citizens and then encourage innovation. That's how that country grew. Liberia can grow too. So I really want to thank you and applaud you. I think that you all are doing a fantastic job with your campaign. I wish you the best of luck. We all care about Liberia. We come here to discuss, engage in the public square, in these public discourses, because we love our country, we care about our country. So thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Yarkpawolo, you got the last word.
Oh, yes. Thank you very much, everyone. It's been a good time with you, gentlemen. From Atman Salif, Dr. Dew, and Honorable Grief. It's been a time, good time to see your perspective on the issues. Those that you agree with, those you disagree with, and of course the host, my brother Dennis. It's good. Let me just a few seconds the names. I think because the name is important for clarification, as Dr. Dew said. The name is this way. In Pele culture, actually, we do. There's no one unified name throughout the family. You're born with one name. When you go to Poro, you come up with another name. Your birth name becomes your last name. Your Poro name is your first name. That's how it's structured. So my birth name is Kwakaba. Kwakaba in Pele mean let us be here. At some point, I gave myself the name Emmanuel when I started school, and I was using Emmanuel Yarkpawolo. At some point, my father took me and carried me to Joseph Ure in Belafana. He was the district commissioner to stay with him to go to school. Joseph, our great uncle, his name was Molba Kwekwe. At the time they used to build roads with him, one of the Ures took Molba Kwekwe and brought in the Carisburg and changed his name to Molba Kwekwe Ure. He stayed there and had his children, one of whom my uncle, Joseph Ure. So when from I think fourth or fifth grade, when I started using with Joseph, and I started to use Joseph Ure, like Emmanuel Ure, heavily, all the way until in 2014 when our father passed away. You know, when the woman passed away, we had a family meeting and we discussed our brothers. We are using different names. It's not good because I'm in America, or some people in Monrovia. So we need to pick up one name that if we borrow the Western system or naming system in the family, we adapted to use Yarkpawolo. All right. Since then, I started to add of Yarkpawolo to my name, but I have to go to court to make sure that I added it properly. So right now, my PhD document is carrying Emmanuel Ure Yarkpawolo. I kept the Ure in between there because it's part of the history now. It's part of my making. I couldn't do away with that. Then I would be disrespectful. Because they've been very good. They helped to educate me, at least through Joseph Ure. So that's how I use that long name. The name is long because I have a complicated history. And it's all part of my history. I'm keeping that.
Because call the K again, because I'm trying to get back to my Pele. Even though my Pele is from Paye.
No, your Kwakaba.
Kwakaba.
The Kwakaba is used interchangeably with King because for some reason my friends gave me the childhood name King when we used to play. So that's part of my name. So even when you go to my childhood friends, my first grade classmate up to sixth grade, those in my district, they can call me Dr. King. You know, that's how they call me in the district when I travel around. That's how they call me. You know, so I have all these names. So interchangeably, you could say Kwakaba, KWA and GBA, or you could say like the name King, like in the name of King. So, but that's it about the name. But the main issue here is Liberia. Liberia is where we are. This country can be changed. There has to be somebody to start this change. This change will not be easy. It will not be a baby step and gotta be just small. It has to be somebody to address the situation and try to reverse it in a positive direction. And that's why Councillor Gongloe has chosen me to do. So for those who are watching the show and those who are listening, we are humbled to be here. The transformation of Liberia is on the broom. Broom is number 6 on the ticket. Encourage your people, if you are in the diaspora, let them go and vote for number 6. Because when the country economy grows, the diaspora community will flourish. Because I too, I live here for some time. Every little thing, they're calling you for school fee. Somebody is sick. Somebody, all kinds of problems because your people are not working. They don't have means of income. So if at all the economy of Liberia is growing, your said the pressure will reduce on you because they will be able to solve most of their problem without coming to you. So that's why the developmental status of Liberia is on the broom. The broom is on number 6. Encourage your people to vote for number 6 so as to change the history of Liberia. Thank you very much, Focus on Africa. I hope to be back again sometime. We want to say thank you to the media and everything you people do to keep our democracy going. It has been a beautiful interaction. I'm happy. So thank you.
Kwakabo, Imama.
I hope we get in contact, please. I will do Dennis.
Wonderful. We can do that, and Dennis can connect us. He has my
definitely. Thank you very much to Dr. Yarkpawolo. Thank you to my panelists. If it is Thursday, it's tough talking. I want to thank our viewers for those who watch, and even those who will watch later. Sam Wallow always got to say something to me. Everything is make it a point to have the candidate only. And Sam, I want you to co-host with me. So come on. So thank you very much. And at this time, we close with our song that says, "We are all Liberians." Whether you're going to vote for number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, or number 20, we are all Liberians. What is incumbent upon all of us is to do our very best to make our country the glorious land of liberty. Have a good night, and God bless you.
We are Liberians.